Germany. From Alaska to Puerto Rico. All over the world, the men and women of your Army are on the alert to defend our nation, you, the American people, against aggression. This is the big picture.
Welcome to the big picture. I'm Captain Carl Zimmerman, here to tell you more about your United States Army. In the past programs of our Big Picture series, we've told you what makes a soldier, how he fights, and all of the teamwork that goes into an Army in action. It's been the story of men. But the Army today is the story of women, too. Skirted soldiers who fill a definite need in the organization of the Army.
When America thinks of its Army today, it thinks of men standing guard at the cornerstones of freedom. Along the unfamiliar streets of Europe to the muddy mountain trails of Korea, the feet of American soldiers are marching. And marching with our fighting Army today is a different kind of soldier. The skirted soldiers, the Women's Army Corps, the Army Nurse Corps, and the Women's Medical Specialist Corps. American women in uniform, playing a vital part in our Army today. Just as they did in the war, American women are again in service, strengthening American defense. The role of women in our Army today is described by General Matthew B. Ridgeway.
Maintaining an army overseas is a tremendous business. It requires that we have adequate forces available to meet any situation which may arise. And these forces must be fed, housed, paid, and medically cared for, so that they retain the high degree of efficiency which always has characterized the United States Army. Just as you will find our women essential in successful organizations throughout our homeland, so will you find women in uniform at home and abroad, rendering conspicuously fine service equally essential to the successful accomplishment of the Army's many varied missions. In my headquarters and in the various sub-commands, we have members of the Women's Army Corps, enlisted and officers, handling hundreds of essential tasks, from routine administrative work to highly skilled technical and professional duties.
On the Korean front, a combat infantryman fires a gun. This WAAC inspected it back in the States. Tanks push ahead. They are fast and powerful. They were tested by this WAAC. Wherever the Army is stationed, women in uniform are there too, working with the soldiers and for them. They continue a tradition which began nearly 200 years ago with a woman called Molly Pitcher. She was the wife of an artilleryman in the Revolutionary War and took his place at the gun when he was killed, saving it from falling into enemy hands. George Washington appointed Molly Pitcher a sergeant for her bravery and placed her on the list of half-pay officers for life. The same tradition was carried on in the Civil War by a woman named Clara Barton, who devoted herself to the care of the sick and wounded soldiers. She was a war nurse and later founded the International Red Cross. It was such pioneers as these who set the pattern for women in our Army. America began to grow, and women were advancing too. World War I found them ready to take man's place on the home front, ready to play a necessary role in defense. Women were at war, playing any role where there was a need. Aiding the sick, tending the wounded, women were there on the battlefields. Heroic nurses fighting not to kill, but to save. And when the war ended, women proudly marched with their men in the victory parade. In peace, they fought for a greater share of our government's responsibilities and won the privilege of voting. By achievement, they set new standards of endeavor, but their greatest test was yet to come. Pearl Harbor. Uncle Sam's men went to war again, and nurses went along with them. This was a different kind of world, where strange-sounding names became datelines for death and heroism. Corregidor, Bataan, Bougainville. Men were wounded, and nurses were still there in the field, helping them. Many nurses won the Silver Star decoration. Others fell into Japanese hands, but were rescued and returned to duty again, for the need of them was great. War began to drain America's manpower away from their desks. Men were fighting, not manning typewriters. But the number of troop movements grew. It took a lot of paperwork to win a war. There were a lot of jobs for which men could not be spared. And 6 months after Pearl Harbor, the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps was born. The Army no longer stood alone. Pallas Athena, goddess of war and achievement, became the WAAC insignia, a symbol of American women dedicated to defense. Across the country, women answered the call. They fell in behind the recruiting parades in fur coats and business suits. Now they had a role to play, an important role, filling a lot of jobs. Soon, the fur coats would be gone. They would be in uniform, proud and patriotic women who lead the way. This was the WAAC in 1942. After enlistment, things happened fast. Interviews, mental tests, and physical examinations. It was a shooting war, all right, in the arm. But after basic training, they were assigned to regular duty. Some returned to school. They had to be trained for specialized jobs, such as mail clerks, X-ray technicians, pharmacy assistants, meat inspectors, and jobs in radio. The WAACs did many jobs. They helped get the troops to the combat zone, and they made sure they got the best weapons. And before long, they themselves followed. By their first anniversary, the WAACs were 60,000 strong, serving at more than 100 military installations. In January 1943, the first group of enlisted women to serve overseas arrived at Algiers. There, amid the bombed ruins, they lived where they could. Sometimes it was in convents, sharing them with orphans. There were hardships. Water was rationed and had to go a long way. But wash day came around just the same. More and more WAACs went overseas. To the skirl of bagpipes, they landed in Scotland and entrained for their camps. In India, they worked within sight of the Taj Mahal and visited Indian shrines in native style. In New Delhi, they went sightseeing in a native buggy. More WAACs arrived in Naples, Italy. And in Cairo, they took to camels for transportation. Women were on duty in all parts of the world. They landed at Anzio and moved on to the battlefields of Europe. From all walks of life they came, society women, teachers, secretaries, housewives. They put aside the comforts of home for a soldier's life and a pup tent in a French field. They traded in their silks and satins for a pair of dirty fatigues and a shower once a week if they were lucky. The local beauty shop was their steel helmets, and it doubled as a laundromat. When chow time came, it was can opening time, and a K-ration diet replaced the luxuries of civilian life. At night, they crawled into their pup tents, and their beauty sleep got used to the bumps. But the women made the best of it and stood up to the test of marches over mountains and service in the air, in the noise of battle, or the quiet of a hospital. They were there, getting the job done, forging the peace which finally came. They came home. They had served shoulder to shoulder with our men and had earned their rightful place beside them. But some of them never came back. And there were some who could not walk away. WAACs got the Purple Heart for sacrifice, the Legion of Merit for outstanding service above and beyond the call of duty. The Women's Army Corps had done its job. But that wasn't the end. There came a new beginning. In April 1947, the Army nurses were for the first time given permanent commission status, and a new branch, the Women's Medical Specialist Corps, was formed for occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and dietitians. In June 1948, Congress passed the Women's Armed Services Act, enabling women to find a permanent career with regulars in the service. Colonel Mary A. Howerin became the first WAAC officer in the regular Army. And Sergeant Vietta M. Bates was sworn in as the first enlisted WAAC. The Women's Army Corps had come of age, and from all walks of life, the girls and women of America turned to it in thousands to make a career. Before them was adventure, a new life, with great purpose and satisfaction. Today, more and more girls are joining the WAACs. The Army is increasing their strength to 30,000. The need for them is as great now as it ever was. At the reception center, the processing and basic training begins. They get issued a uniform, and it's tailored to fit. Then they begin their training. Classes, military justice, customs, and courtesy. There's a lot to learn. Including close order drill. And what to do in a gas attack. Like their combat troop buddies, WAACs go on bivouac and learn how to live in the field. Their feet get sore on route marches, and their backs get used to heavy packs. But when the command "Take 10" comes, the girls make the most of it like real troopers. On bivouac, home becomes a pup tent in a field. And the girls learn how to decorate it with camouflage instead of drapes. At dinner time, they line up for food and grow accustomed to eating out of mess kits, which in a pinch do double duty. But there is relaxation and sports and games which build good health. A letter from home is always enjoyed. Camp life is different and is fun, and the girls enjoy it. Keeping in good shape is part of the training, too. The girls learn unarmed defense, which can be useful if they are assigned to the military police. The WAACs have their own MPs, and they must know how to look after themselves. To fill the many specialized jobs, WAACs must go to special schools and be trained for their highly skilled work. Career guidance helps them choose their job. They can be punch card operators, clerks and stenographers, or administration specialists. Some WAACs are right at the top as non-commissioned assistants at the highest Army levels. Others do map making or drafting. And the food service is another career field open to them. Valuable work is being done by WAACs as lab technicians and assistants. And the medical field offers absorbing careers in many branches. Others go to officers' candidate school and receive their commissions. It takes a lot of work to earn those bars. When their training is over, there lies before them unlimited opportunity. It may be in Japan as a file clerk, Paris at the headquarters of SHAPE, or in Germany, where WAACs are working in many jobs like cryptographers and interpreters. WAACs are all over the world, keeping our Army moving, releasing men for combat duty. Sometimes WAACs are called upon to take part in special maneuvers like this one to test Arctic equipment and obtain special information for the Army. In extreme cold, the girls go on bivouac and learn how to live in the snow. WAACs must be ready to work and live in any climate, and their equipment and clothing must be tested if they are to survive. Transportation in the Arctic is a problem. They must learn how to maneuver and get about in frigid weather. They must learn how to ski and walk with snowshoes. In this test, home is carried on your back, and a friend helps you to load it. Marching in the deep snow isn't easy, and the girls have to learn how to conserve their strength. A strenuous workout like this gives the girls a good appetite. Bivouac isn't so much fun under conditions like these, but it's all part of preparing the Women's Army Corps to be able to function under any conditions. But in whatever part of the world they are stationed, off-duty hours means sightseeing and relaxation. It may be a rickshaw ride through the streets of Tokyo, or bargaining with a local storekeeper. And along the fashionable boulevards of Paris, the uniform of the Women's Army Corps still commands attention. All the well-known sights are visited, including the Eiffel Tower. At the Louvre, the girls saturate themselves in European culture and pay a visit to the statue of Venus de Milo. At special leave resorts, the girls again take to skis, while others watch winter games. WAACs lucky enough to be stationed near Garmisch in Germany get an unusual thrill when they ride the mountain cable car. This is the Women's Army Corps at work and play, in communications or at headquarters. Their tasks are never ending. In the dispensary, it might be giving diathermy treatment or teaching a veteran how to walk again. The WAACs are skilled in highly technical jobs, such as X-ray technicians, and their training is used to save lives. The Women's Army Corps is again on the upswing. Integrated throughout the entire organization of the Army, women in uniform are achieving greater accomplishments than ever before. There is no horizon to their endeavor, and our Army is proud of them. Oldest of the women's services is the Army Nurse Corps, which celebrated its 51st birthday this year.
In our hospitals in the Far East, Army nurses, teamed with our doctors, have achieved the finest medical record in military history. Countless lives have been saved through their professional skill and devoted care of our sick and wounded. We have women dietitians supervising the preparation and serving of good, wholesome food to our sick and wounded. We have women physiotherapists supervising skilled treatment and exercise for their patients, an essential factor in rebuilding sick bodies.
Army nurses holding the rank of commissioned officers are writing another historic chapter in their saga of service. Just as they were in our past, nurses today are on duty. They carry on the same selfless service. Wherever they are, the battlefields of our armies are their workshop. The profession of healing is their business. On medical trains, they continue to tend the wounded. In their selfless humanitarian service, they seem to supply that hard-to-define something called the will to live. To the helpless, injured men, they become arms and legs. They go about their rounds quietly, helping and comforting. Army nurses were the first American women to be assigned to the Korean combat zone, and many are still there. But whether it is in the wards or in surgery, women are part of the medical team which gives our injured soldiers the finest medical treatment available. In tent hospitals like this, somewhere in Korea, Army nurses serve round the clock, or staff the many mobile hospital units which ebb and flow with the tide of battle. Taking temperatures, they care for the battle injured. A pulse is checked, and a wounded man is fed. Whatever the task, they strengthen the road to recovery. They are part of the quiet fight to save life. Behind them are years of training, study, and practice, and it all suddenly finds purpose in a surgical tent somewhere in Korea. Nurses enjoy off-duty recreation, too, when rest and relaxation are the order of the day. And when there's time, they add that feminine touch. And there are always the sights to see and souvenirs to buy. The Army Nurse Corps is 5,000 strong, and there's need for more. Wherever sick and wounded soldiers need aid, there always will be found the Army Nurse Corps. Working with them is the newest corps of women in uniform, the Women's Medical Specialist Corps, made up of physical therapists, dietitians, and occupational therapists. With these specialists, the Army rounds out its highly skilled health team. Their specialized skills help bodies to recover. The wounded get the benefits of medicine's most advanced techniques. These, then, are your skirted soldiers, nurses in Korea, carrying on their healing. Specialists applying the most advanced techniques, and the Women's Army Corps at work in administration, replacing men for combat duty, filling 100 jobs which must be done if our Army is to stay prepared. Around the world, they serve with the men of our Army. With our soldiers, they are on guard, ready to make the machinery of defense run smoothly. Wherever they are needed, and whatever the job, the women in uniform are ready, a great part of our defense team. The Women's Army Corps, the Army Nurse Corps, and the Women's Medical Specialist Corps.
This unique combination of Army service women, nurses, medical specialists, and WAACs has contributed magnificently in helping to discharge the heavy responsibilities which we have in the Far East. I am proud of these splendid young women sharing our service in this vitally important region. I wish we had many more of them. They are an invaluable part of this command, and their willingness to share responsibility in our great struggle for a free world should command the respect of all Americans.
That's the story of the women in your Army, soldiers in their own right, upholding the Army's traditions of service and duty. Women in uniform, serving their country and you. Next week on The Big Picture, passing in review will be the Army Signal Corps, the eyes and ears of your Army. This is Captain Carl Zimmerman inviting you to be with us then.